Whoa, we're back for some Bleach Soul Resonance. And as another update, by the way, just in case you didn't see the last video, for those of you who watch daily, I have been uploading daily for months and months and months. I feel like I've been uploading daily literally since Bleach Soul Resonance came out, so like almost 6 months at this point. I will be taking a little bit of a vacation, actually the same day that this video goes up. So if you wonder why videos slow down, I might record some backlog. I might also just decide to, you know, take it easy. If everything lines up, I will be in a podcast sort of discussion video over on Giku's channel with Aaron, talking about Bleach Soul Resonance, how it's doing, some of the things I'm going to talk about in this video, and so on and so forth. So if you want your fix of loan, I will be over there. So appreciate you for going over there and checking out that video. That said, all right, I want to talk about leaks, I guess, like partially. So we've got Giku here dropping some game news, and first of all, let's actually talk about revenue for April. So last month and going into this month, we've gotten what I would consider two relatively low hype characters. You know, we got Soifon, who I know a lot of people thought that would be like a hype character. Just, you know, Soifon's cool. That said, as far as Bleach Soul Resonance goes, as far as the Bleach IP goes, I think by and large, the men tend to be more popular than a lot of the women in Bleach. Aizen is a great example. Yaha is a great example. A lot of Quincy and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that there are no popular women in Bleach. There are a lot of cool women in Bleach, some characters like Yoruichi and the like, but for the most part, we haven't really gotten the super duper hype versions of these characters that we already have in. So like Yoruichi is in Black Cat or Thundercat, you know, she's not, you know, down on all fours, doing her transformation, going crazy. Rukia, by the way, is a spoiler, but she'll be brought up in this video, hasn't gotten her hype version. Orihime Ino here is probably her least interesting version. I think a lot of people would like her in her you know, time in Hueco Mundo. That fit for her is a little cooler. A lot of the other girls here are pretty whatever. Nemu is an SR, but also she's not exactly like, you know, endgame Nemu either. Momo is a bit forgettable in the grand scheme of Bleach. Rangiku as well could be a, you know, higher priority character. Definitely popular to some gamers, I'll say that much, but not so much within the world of Bleach. She's not a character who's like super vital. She tends to take a very sideline role. Nelel is by far the most active and interesting woman we have in the game so far in terms of her relevance to the show, what she's up to. At least this form of her. I'd say this form of her is much more interesting and impactful to the show than what was going on with the rest of the characters so far. So it's no surprise, especially with how good she is, that she got a lot more revenue shared for her. So I do think that in the grand scheme of things, though, I'm not like, oh my god, 2 million down to 1.9, or I guess 1.92 million, probably closer to 2 million if you're not counting web store. 20% down, as Gecko says here. I guess you could just read it, but revenue for April. Note, this does not count the web store. I would use this as a general trend up and down and not even compare to other gachas. It only went down about 22% or 20% rather in revenue during an overall dead month, so take that as you will. I'm very, very positive about this sort of decrease. I think this is completely fine. I know there are just going to be people who, you know, they see number go down and they start freaking out, they start dooming. That's just sort of the world we live in, you know. Number go down, get upset, number go up, you know, big happy. You can't see it here due to my capture, but it says we should start getting into our info for half-anni soon. I'm confused because usually they already announce a stream. I'm expecting half-anni to go way up, but we will see. We will see it's cut off right here. But other than that, though, TYBW Teased, TYBW Bankai Rukia, and Bankai Yamamoto. Note the AI videos so far have accurately teased Xylapido and Soifon, but this could change at any point. So that's two ghosts right there. I'm very excited for them. So let me go ahead and get a zoom here. Yamamoto coming to Bleach Soul Resonance. Now this, I would say that when this game was first announced, I had 3 characters in mind that I could not miss. Kenpachi, that's my GOAT. Yamamoto, that's my GOAT. And Shunsui. Anyone else that came out, I'm excited to see them. I love Bleach. Bleach is a very, very fun manga. But beyond those 3, I'm sort of like, I'm like good in terms of like, I need these guys in the game. I would say that Coyote Stark ends up in there, maybe like the 4th spot. I would say that right there. Him being Bankai probably means that I mean, I talked about this before. There's not a lot of reasons to return to Old Man Yamamoto. Because his first appearance, his first like active appearance, he doesn't do a ton. And then his fight versus Yuha is when we see him really explode. I would expect this character to be Aizen levels of powerful. Just consistently. I do not think that the Captain Commander is a character they're going to take lightly. So what do I mean by that? Let's just go back to, you know, the actual in-game. And this is nothing. If you like one of these characters, if you love one of these characters, please don't, I'm going to move my mic stand. Please don't take this as, oh, you have bad taste or anything, but let's just be honest. We know that when a Kenpachi comes out, he's probably going to be a little better than, you know, the first Renji or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Chad and things like that. It's just the popularity contest, right? And we see that with Aizen too. I would expect the Captain Commander to work much like Aizen, where I won't be surprised at all when he drops and he's top 1. Whereas if a character like Gin dropped and was top 1, I'd be like, whoa, that's pretty interesting, right? I won't be surprised. I would be surprised if this version of Toshido was top 1, but would I be surprised if adult Toshido is top 1? You know, TYBW? Like, no. That Hitsugaya is, you know, Mr. Aura, right? So we'll have to see. Same with like Grimmjow. I won't be surprised at all when Grimmjow drops his, you know, top 1 DPS. Even beyond him being half-anni, like I really don't care about that, honestly. It's just the character carries so much like weight. Same with Zaya Lapido, same with Mayuri, right? There are just these characters where I expect them to be some of the best, if not the best outright. And the Captain Commander fits that bill. Secondarily, and we can move over there, we go over here and we get Rukia with her Bankai. Now, I said really early on that whole thing about, oh, we might only get 1 of each character, they might not really return to them. I was like, no. They are being like, you know, sort of like setting expectations, but there's no fucking world where the only Rukia we ever get as one of the seminal popular characters in the series, one of the main protagonist characters in the series that we follow a lot, there is no way in the world that at some point we do not see her be a TYBW unit. Now, what could we see regarding their abilities, regarding their typings? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go out on a limb and stick by my earliest prediction for Yamamoto. I'm going to stick by the earliest one I had, which is that Yamamoto is here to replace either the thrust DPS or possibly the spirit DPS or sub DPS. I don't know which. Aizen has been around for a long time. He has. Let's take a breath. Aizen has been around for a long time. He doesn't need to be the only spirit character in the game for an entire year. And if you have Aizen at B4, then you will almost certainly have a character that is stronger than probably B0, B1, B2 Yamamoto. That's just how the power creep will work. But there is an opportunity to sort of discuss, like, well, what if you get that Yamamoto to B2 and he's something like this? Well, then he might even be better than your B1, B2, B3 Aizen, but B4 will still have his place. because he is essentially a DPS character instead of just a sub DPS character, right? I would not be attached to Aizen staying around for the rest of time. That's all I'm going to say. I think the Captain Commander does demand that kind of respect. Now, the reason I don't think it will be him is just because where does Rukia really fit in if he ends up being the tactics for Spirit or something. This character is a Spirit tactics character. We see that here. Does it mean that every single time they'll have to always match whatever their SR is? I don't think so. I think at some point we could get an Ichigo that's tactics. I think at some point we could get a Orihime that's DPS or tactics or just a support again, right? I don't really think they need to fit into these binaries. What I will say with Rukia, though, is that it is very difficult to imagine a world where she is not Spirit. So for now, I'm going to say that Rukia is either going to be the Spirit DPS replacement instead of Harabel. I'm going to go out on a limb and say she might be, because the thing about that Rukia is she's not supporting anyone. She's not playing the backline. She fucking kills that man. When she puts on the clothes, when she puts the drip on, she pulls that coat, she start feeling out of body. I don't know. I could see her just being the DPS that replaces Hitsugaya. However, her as a tactics character would make Hitsugaya all the crazier, because remember, we don't need to always think about these characters as singular entities. This character freezes people. That's his ailment, right? I can't remember where it actually is, but it builds up ice on people. It's one of these things. He builds up ice and he freezes people. If they give him, let's say for Harabel, she's a Spirit DPS. She's a Spirit DPS, and that's fine, but guess what? Her best partner is Aizen. Oshido's best partner, for people who like Toshido, could end up being an SSR TYBW Rukia. And the reason they'd be the best partners for each other is because she will probably have some amount of freeze scaling in her kit. These freeze points. I don't imagine her being such an entirely different character than this SR. So I think it would just make the most amount of sense to not fully replace Toshido in that case, not really overthink Rukia's place in the release schedule. Just give him a partner and then give Harabel Aizen, and now you can run 2 Spirit teams in content. I said before, we're going to start filling these teams up. You might be like, oh, another Spirit before Strike, blah, blah, blah. There's going to become a point where this, within the struggling and fighting, is going to say recommended type Spirit, recommended type Spirit, recommended type Strike, or something like that. It could happen. It could happen. I think it's very realistic. So don't be surprised when they're like, hey, you want to run Aizen with Harabel, but you actually want to run Hitsugaya with Rukia because they have that Frost synergy. I think that is, and that's one way that, hey, you have this Frost synergy now. Rukia, if you have another Frosty character, if you have an Ice character, you rerun the Hitsugaya banner, you have an extremely strong team. But if you run her without that freeze point synergy, she's really good, but she's more of just a Spirit sub DPS at that point. She's not really running that's a good thing. I like niches like that. I like when teams revolve around each other very directly. That way teams aren't always just Zaya Lapado buff Spirit, so click on the blue characters and put them on a team. You know what I mean? Click on the blue characters and put them on a team. Once we start getting into the case where it's Yoruichi wants people to proc dodge, and she lowers dodge faster so she can use perfect counter, getting Soifon onto the field. Soifon then gets to use her thing to swap back out, and then blah 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 blah. I think that is much more interesting than characters who are sort of universally good. Kenpachi doesn't really have any things that he does synergies with other characters. He just takes low screen time and he's good. This was the first example of how strong that can be. It wasn't that this character just got everything. It's that this character got this poison pool. And this is a direct synergy for Gin. that is a synergy that makes my Yuri hard to replace. When they release another thrust support or thrust DPS, there could be a chance that my Yuri is still just better with Gin because their abilities are so synergistic. Okay, so there's that. As for Yamamoto, what else he could be? Sorry, I went on a little rant there because I'm very interested in what Rukia could end up, you know, doing for the game. But I think that another like sort of phantom way they could go with this is making him the slash character. Obviously Yamamoto just has that like, there's just that perfect cut where the sword hits the ground next to Yuha's like foot and it just blasts it away, making him this sort of like, you know, if you guys remember like Sekido, you know, Ishin, the sword saint, where it's like at the very end of the game he's like this final boss with just his katana, and it's just so cool looking. It feels like everything's sort of leading up to that moment when Yamamoto has that final, that like, you know, that impossible flame just sword in his hand, and it just, I don't know, it just feels so perfect. It feels like an old master wielding something that he's done 100,000 times, kind of like Netero in Hunter x Hunter when he's beating up my boy, and then he's it's sort of flashing back to his life, and he's practicing this punch 100,000 times, and it's all he's done with his life is practice this, and it's sort of really transcended to this like Buddhist like quality of just like utter release, utter mastery. That's kind of what Yamamoto gives me. That's like the aura that our GOAT sort of gives off here. So if he's the slash tactics, if they want to make him sort of the, and I didn't even think of this, I didn't even put this together, but slash is kind of a Shinigami paradise. So Kenpachi is our slash character, Yadahara is our slash character, Byakuya Kuchiki is our slash character, and then it's a bunch of Ichigos. He's substitute Shinigami, but you get the idea. Whereas like you could be like, well, okay, well, Gin is like is still a Shinigami, and so is Aizen. Yeah, but they're not really related to Soul Society anymore. Slash has kind of been the Soul Society team for a long time. They've never gotten anything so far that has removed that like vision of them, right? So could be something there. Continue to make Slash sort of the Soul Society team. Yeah, I think that's it though. I think that's it. That's my little review of things. Again, this is all speculation. I try not to give too much credence to leaks, but I figured this would be fun. Again, I'm going away, so this is a fun little video to just sort of have a nice little time and get something out for you guys. So yeah, I've been Lone. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the club. We'll go make it, and peace.